Board meeting for December 11, 2024 is called to order. The meeting is also being live streamed on YouTube. Adequate notice of this meeting was provided in the New Jersey Herald. It was also posted on the Sparta Township website and its bulletin board in accordance with all provisions of the Open Public Meetings Act. This board does not hear any new applications after 9:30, and we adjourn at 10 p.m. sharp. Practice of this board to salute the flag. Please rise and join us. I pledge allegiance to the flag, the United States of America,
and to the republic
for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Marissa, please call the roll.
John Finkeldy,
Present.
Michael Josephic,
Here.
Michael Leondi,
Here.
Mark Scott,
Here.
Jennifer Pinaha,
Here.
Chairman Kenneth Lowry,
Here.
Glenn Keynes.
Thank you. We have some resolutions to be memorialized tonight. The first one is 24-2395, Corona Realty Corporation for C variance and D variance relief decided on November 13th, 2024. The chair will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second, please.
A second.
Any discussion? Marissa, please call the roll.
John Finkeldy,
Yes.
Michael Josephic,
Yes.
Mark Scott,
Yes.
Chairman Kenneth Lowry,
Yes. Next application was 16-24, Eric and Allison Erler for C variance relief decided on November 13, 2024. Chair will entertain a motion.
Make the motion.
Second, please.
Second?
Any discussion? Marissa, please call the roll.
John Finkeldy,
Yes.
Michael Josephic,
Yes.
Mark Scott,
Yes.
Chairman Kenneth Lowry,
Yes. Application 17-24, John Randy Earl, C variance relief decided on November 13, 2024. Chair will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second, please.
Second.
Any discussion? Marissa, please call the roll.
John Finkeldy,
Yes.
Michael Josephic,
Yes.
Mark Scott,
Yes.
Chairman Kenneth Lowry,
Yes. And last one is 18-24, Ryan and Kristen Flynn for C variance relief decided on November 13, 2024. The chair will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second, please.
Second.
Any discussion? Marissa, please call the roll.
John Finkeldy,
Yes.
Michael Josephic,
Yes.
Mark Scott,
Yes.
Chairman Kenneth Lowry,
Yes, thank you. For the public hearing, the Sussex County Charter School application 12-24 for D variance relief is being carried to January 8, 2025, and they will have to notice again. And then the next application, 13-23 for Anderson for D variance relief. Also correspondence from our board engineer, David Simmons, for the year-end report. After the application is heard, I'll open the hearing to the public for any comments or questions they may have on items not on the agenda tonight. And before we start the application 13-23, I would like to thank board member Mark Scott for his service to this board. Congratulations on being elected to town council, and I wish you all the best, Mark.
Thank you, Ken,
You're welcome.
and thank you, everybody. It's been a pleasure.
And application 13-23 for Anderson for D variance relief, please come forward.
Or you can come on up.
Your name, sir?
Good evening. My name is David Gray, Gray. I'm an attorney at Gray Law Group, and I'm representing the applicant on this request for a D1 variance.
And Glenn, if you're so kind.
Rise up, sir. You swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth, the proceedings before the board tonight, so help you God.
I do.
And what might your name be?
Tor Anderson.
Okay, Tor, good to see you.
Now, after you complete the application for your client, I'll open it up to our board professionals and our board members for any questions or comments they may have. And after we're finished, I'll open it up to the public for any questions they may have. And
Chairman, just before you get started, I think I ought to take one thing off the table. And first off, we have 6 members, but your number skills, David, are very good, so I wasn't worried about that.
so,
I'm more concerned over the fact that your client is very popular around here, and I would suspect that a number of us have stopped in and bought fresh produce, whether it's at your Anderson and Andover store or the one out in Sparta. So I think just in order to take this off the table completely, I'd like to just invoke the rule of necessity, because chances are you're a local business, you're a very popular business, you do it, and I think that's a better way of proceeding before we get started. Does anybody have any problem with that? Okay,
Absolutely.
now you got everybody.
and sir, as you know, this is a D variance. You'll need 5 yes votes to approve it, and if it is approved, the variance will go to the land in perpetuity, as you probably know.
Right. I think, are there 5 members tonight?
6.
Six
Yes.
members.
So you will proceed, correct?
Yes, yes.
How can we help you?
Well, thank you very much for the opportunity, Tori. You can have a seat. I'm just going to give some brief introductory remarks and then ask you to hear from my colleague about why he's looking for this and what's going on. And what we're asking for is a D1 variance to swap out a sign that is on Mr. Anderson's farm stand. That's there now. It's an 8x4 sign off the road on his Route 15 farm stand. And he'd like to replace it with a digital multimedia billboard. And we're going to explain to you what that's all about. And we understand what the municipal ordinance of Sparta say about that. But hopefully you'll hear us out. I know you'll hear us out, and I appreciate that. And you'll come to the conclusion that this actually does make sense for this particular situation. Also, tonight we have George Crescione. He's a representative of the Billboard Company to talk about what it would look like and what it would be. And we have a planner, Donna Holmquist, who is here, who will testify as a, if you'll accept her as an expert planner, and give some more information about what it means for the town and the interplay between this application and ordinances. So you might recall that we were actually on your agenda last month, and I was in the parking lot, actually. Mr. Anderson had a family emergency that night, and unfortunately, his father-in-law did not make it through that night. That's why we really appreciate this board's indulgences in carrying the matter to tonight, and appreciate that opportunity. So just briefly, if you're familiar with Mr. Anderson's farm stand on Route 15, if you're heading north on 15 on the right there, there's a sign that probably you might not know about because it doesn't really stick out in your mind. It's a little bit dilapidated. It needs to be redone one way or the other. It's an 8x4 sign. It's got a nice planter around the base of it, and that's the sign that we're talking about. It's 8x4. The closest kind of thing we could get to an 8x4 at the time, it looks like we can get an 8.4 by 4.2 signs. We are asking for a little slight increase from 8x4 to 8.4 by 4.2. So it is a little bit of a bigger sign. I'm not sure we're going to be able to get an exact 8x4. When we first did this application quite a while ago, the manufacturer didn't have that, but it's possible it changed. But we are asking for the 8.4 by 4.2. And Mr. Anderson is going to just talk to you about what he does. We know he's a farmer, but a little bit more information and why this application makes sense for him and his business. But it's not just him and his business that it makes sense for. We know that we're in the economic development zone, and we know that we've got support of other local businesses. It makes sense for other local businesses in town in this economic development zone that really don't have much of an opportunity, especially if they're off Route 15, to advertise their businesses. Now, the municipal law, the zoning law here in Sparta, there's a general prohibition on any billboard advertising. When I say the word billboard, I mean advertising a business that's not at the location where the sign is. Right, so a sign is advertising for the business that's at that location. And when I use the word billboard, it's advertising for a business that's not at that location. But we all see signs and billboards around. We all seen some electronic ones. So it's not just advertising for businesses that are not at that location. It's also putting up emergency messaging. We'll talk about that a little bit. Emergency messaging that hopefully benefits Sparta Township. Holiday greetings, things of that nature. But we'll talk about that messaging further in the application. Even though your zoning laws say no billboards allowed, I dropped my son off at Sparta Karate and drove down 181 Lafayette Road and down Newton Sparta Road and probably passed 4 or 5 billboards. So they are there. We just want to do something that fits within Sparta Township. We're all like residents here and want to make it better. And hopefully you find that that's the case for Mr. Anderson. So, I'm sorry I'm a little bit long-winded. I know we're the only application, so we'll get through it. At this time, Mr. Keynes has already sworn in Mr. Anderson, so I'd like to pass the baton to Mr. Anderson, who has jotted down some information on his notes here, and he'd like to go through and tell you a little bit about what this application is all about. And no further ado, Mr. Anderson, would you please tell the board a little bit about Tor Anderson and your family business here in Sparta Township?
First of all, thank you guys very much for coming out, and thank you for the time commitment that you all put into this. I know it's a big,
Mr. Anderson, can you pull the microphone a little bit closer to the state requirement? We have recordings of proceedings.
Yep. Is that
Thank
better?
you.
So thank you guys for doing this, and I know you put a lot of time into it, so we really appreciate it. My name's Tor Anderson. Started my farm 20 years ago, or 21 years ago. I'm a first-generation farmer. I got married and started the farm the same month, and convinced my wife somehow that this was a good idea. We opened up our Sparta location in 2005, just as a small farm market, farm stand. It was an 8x12 shed. So it's grown substantially in the last 20 years. Soon after that, we opened a garden center in Sussex. We still currently operate that. And then we also opened a location on Newton Sparta Road, which a lot of you are familiar with, in 2014. We currently farm over 300 acres in Sparta alone, and another probably 200-something acres outside of Sparta. In the past 3 years, we just added a 7,000 tree apple orchard on White Lake Road in Sparta, which is I think going to be a big hit for the Sparta community. This was our first year for letting the public in there, and it was a big success. So my business is I run the whole business, but I kind of sucked in all my family, so it's I got everybody. I have 4 daughters that help me, and my parents help me, my nieces and nephews. It's so we have, in our busy season, we have almost 50 people working. So it's a good place for your kids to learn how to work and realize that they better stay in school and learn so they don't have to do this the rest of their life. So we farm a lot of different pieces of property around Sparta for different landowners, and we take a lot of pride in how we do it, and we love to keep everything looking perfect because it reflects on the township, and it makes everything look nice around here because, I mean, the limited open space that we have left is, we try to keep it as nice as possible. So that's very, very important to us. It's one of those things where I'm trying to make sure that agricultural stays a sustainable industry in the area. Because if we can't keep doing this, and everything's gonna get developed and you're not gonna have any, people enjoy the farmland, they love looking at it, but we have to be able to make money doing it. So that's kind of one of the reasons why we're trying to add this to our farm, so we have a little, outside of the farm income to, kind of offset our expenses. In 2017, I was nominated the New Jersey Outstanding Young Farmer, and then we made it to the top 10 for the country. Currently, I'm serving on the board of directors that runs that whole program now. So we basically travel around the country in February when we're kind of slow, and we put a spotlight on young farmers that are kind of going above and beyond, doing what they do. We work with a bunch of different agricultural organizations trying to promote ag and make it more accessible for young farmers trying to get into the business. One of the most important things to my family is kind of trying to give back to the community. Currently, I'm the vice president of the Northwest Christian School Board. We're very involved with Sparta Evangelical Free Church, which is right next to us on Route 15. I serve as a trustee there. I'm also on the church building committee right now. I'm working with a lot of the people from the township trying to build a new building there. So we try to incorporate our farm into a lot of these things. In the summertime, the church does a big summer camp and brings out probably about 800 or 900 kids. And we created a whole program that we take these kids out on the farm and we teach them about everything that's grown in New Jersey and what we can do here. And a lot of them have no idea what goes on in our state. So try to just educate as many kids as we can and show them what we're doing. So every fall, our farm puts together about 300 meals that we give away for Thanksgiving to anybody that's in need. And we basically just tell people, if you know somebody that's in a bad place or, is in need of a meal for Thanksgiving, we cook 300 meals off and we donate them every Thanksgiving. Yeah, another big program that we do kind of all year long is my wife came up with this idea to we do a Love Thy Neighbor soup, and it's available all the time. You walk in the store and just tell us you want a soup. You get the soup for free, and you bring it to somebody that that's having a bad day or needs a little pick me up. And so all these things are just we like to give back. Our farm we've been blessed in many different ways by our community, and we try to give back as much as we can. We've been the last couple of years have gotten tremendously busier than we were, which is really good. So we just want to give back as much as we can. So you're probably wondering why I'm telling you all this, and I'm going on about myself for so long. But I'm looking for your help. This sign is going to drastically help our business. We basically rely on Mother Nature year round, and it's a challenge some years when we have a drought or we have a late frost and it kills everything we have planted already, or a hailstorm in the middle of the summer and it wipes out half our crops. So there's a lot of different issues that can happen, and this is just kind of a more solid income that will just make things a little bit easier, I guess you could say. I was trying to figure this out, but I believe I am the last farmer in Sparta that relies on a farming business alone to make an income. And I just kind of want to, this kind of would help us just to make sure that that stays. You don't have too many farmers to replace me, and there's not too many that are jumping into the business. So we're just trying to figure out a way to make it more sustainable. That's why we're really pushing this thing. We're hoping that it's going to be a benefit to the community, to the township, letting other local businesses use it, giving the township, the ability to post any kind of events or announcements, anything like that. And then if there was, any kind of emergency situation, it's kind of an ideal location for that to be posted. So, just hope you consider all these things and help us out.
And Mr. Anderson, if I might just ask a couple of questions, and I'll note that when I asked Mr. Anderson to talk about himself a little bit, it was like the hardest thing in the world to do, to get a farmer to talk about himself. It took months to drag it out. Mr. Anderson, you have some businesses, I guess, in multiple locations, is that right?
Yeah.
And although you said some of the things you intend to advertise on the board, like messaging for the town and emergency messages, but it's your intention to also put up messages that advertise other businesses, right?
Yeah.
And it's also your intention to put up messages that advertise your other businesses in other locations, is that right?
Yes. Yeah.
And can you tell me again, you said you had about 50 employees total when you're working. Is that throughout the whole year?
No, the busy season, we're really busy in the spring, we're really busy in the fall. So it fluctuates considerably through the year, and then the winter is very, very quiet.
How
So
many employees would you say you have for the winter?
it's probably 6.
Okay, so you go from like 50 to 6.
Yeah,
Okay, so lean times in the winter, fair to say?
yeah, very lean.
You work with other, well, I don't know, you work with them, I'm assuming you do, but you know other businesses in town, right?
Yeah.
Have you spoken to them about their thoughts on advertising?
I haven't specifically spoke with anyone, but I'm sure, I work with a lot of different local guys, and I'm sure that would be a big hit if we could help them out.
Yeah, now, the sign the way it is now, would you agree that you gotta do something there? It's gotta be like redone.
Yeah.
In one
It's
respect.
a little overdue.
And is there anything else you wanted to add before the board is able to ask you any questions?
I think that's it.
All right, at this time, I'll be happy to open to ask the board.
You said you Mr. Gregg was his name?
My name is Mr., yes,
Okay.
David Gray.
You can call your other professionals in to testify, then after you're
Oh, after
completely,
everything
yeah,
is
everything's
done.
done, then we'll ask our questions if you're so
Thank you
kind.
for letting me know. So,
Yeah.
Mr. Anderson, I'm going to ask you just to have a seat back here. And at this time, I'm going to ask George Frescio to come up and be sworn in.
As usual, Glenn, if you're so kind.
Absolutely.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Chairman. George, please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth in the proceedings before the board tonight, so help you God? I know how to spell George. You got to keep, George, you can sit. Make sure you work the mic like a nightclub singer.
Yep.
And keep your voice up. And how do you spell your last name, George?
Crescione.
Okay, counsel.
Thank you.
Mr. Frescio, can you tell us your capacity and what brings you here tonight?
Sure. About 20 years ago, I started getting involved in the billboard business. Indoor screens, outdoor screens of all sizes. I was lucky enough to meet Mr. Schoonmaker, who is the president of North Jersey Advertising, and he and I were working together on some other projects, and he asked me if I would be able to run billboards, and I thought the answer was yes. So we went with it, and here we are. We've built a really beautiful business. I think the nicest part about my business, other than obviously making pretty good money, is being able to help people. I just did it again today. I had a I had a father whose son died in a choking accident. And I hate to hit you with this early, but this has just really just happened 3 hours ago. And he's been raising, the name of the organization is Mavericks Legacy. And I think they're pretty prevalent around here. But anyways, I saw a post on LinkedIn, and I've been following this guy for about a year or two. And I actually have a 3-year-old son and a 1.5-year-old daughter. And I called him out of the blue, and I said, we're going to sponsor ads for you, because this is the kind of awareness. These are the kind of things, other than general business marketing, that we like to help with on these signs. And we've done it at the Yetter's Diner sign. We've done it on the Route 15 sign, north and south. We've done it on all of my indoor signs. So I guess my point let me just answer your question. So I'm the billboard controller. Okay, so I do all the controlling of the signs. I schedule all the content to show up. I do the outreach to the customers. I work with the townships when they need something. So for example, Jefferson Township just had their Teacher of the Year up there for 3 or 4 weeks. And then the next day they called back and said, we had 3 bus drivers quit. We need bus drivers right now. So we put a bus driver ad up on all of our boards, free of charge, within an hour. And we've been able to work hand in hand with businesses and townships and actually get local businesses phone calls. And right now, really, that's what it's all about, is getting people phone calls, because taxes are going up, costs are going up, inflation is crazy. And sometimes there's not a place to advertise. If you look at these billboards in Sparta, every one of them is gobbled up by a national organization or a state department of seatbelts or smoke detectors, or you don't see John's Deli up there. Now, you see those on our billboards because we work with the local companies. We work with their budgets. We work with their timeframes. We work with them on payments. But you don't see them on the Outfront boards or the Lamar boards. That's what we specialize in. And we're happy about that because, Lamar and Outfront, they don't want our customers, right? We're working with the local businesses, not the local national businesses.
Mr. Cresciano, what are your connections with Sparta Township?
So I grew up in Sparta. I went to Pope John. I own several businesses in Sparta right now. I actually just opened up a Sylvan Learning Center on Main Street, is my newest business. I have used some billboard advertising to get going. It's been great. So as a local business owner, besides from doing this, I'm really in touch with hundreds of businesses in town. And the feedback that I get is, we love what you do. We wish there was more of it. We wish we could afford to do this forever. It's a need other than Facebook marketing, or it's real life marketing is scarce right now.
Can you describe, and I know that our planner is going to go into it, but can you describe the specific location and the sign that Tour intends to, or is asking to?
Sure. So I'm a billboard guy, obviously, so I noticed these signs. And many years ago, I realized that Mr. Anderson had a DOT number on his board, which means we're not asking for a billboard. This has been a billboard for 35 years. This has always been a billboard. This is nothing new. What we're asking to do is similar what we asked to do in Frankfurt. We would like to take a sign that's becoming dilapidated on this brand new farm stand property and revive it, okay? And allow local businesses, just like Mr. Anderson probably has local products from farms and, all curated within his pies and his cakes and stuff. We'd also like to bring that same local business marketing aspect to his farm with this sign. We're not asking for a large increase in size. We're actually really not asking for any increase at all. So the sign will appear to look identical to what we currently have. Okay, so nothing's really going to change other than the fact that we will safely be able to change a message instantly for the township, for a local business, maybe for all those new restaurants and shops that just opened up in the North Village. I mean, I have polled those people. They're frothing at the mouth to get this billboard because they would love to direct people off of Route 15 into their happy hour or into their Jersey Mike's. And I'll just give you a testimonial. I'm working with somebody who is on the Sparta Economic Development Council, and he owns a local business in town off the beaten path on Park Lake Road. And he has been working with my marketing, and we've been having new people come in the door, and he said, this is great. So I asked him to write us a letter about supporting this sign, and he did. So I know we have it on file somewhere, but the local businesses would be really excited about it, an affordable place to market on that road, especially.
Mr. Crescione, Mr. Simmons submitted a letter to the board. We have a copy of it, and it asks for some more information, testimony, if you will, about things like brightness levels and a little bit of specifics. Are you
Yeah.
you're familiar with what those specifics would be, right? So on Mr. Simmons's report, one of the points that he brought up was to provide testimony that nighttime brightness level would be the limit nighttime brightness level for an on-premise electronic message center to 0.3 foot candle above ambient light conditions at an appropriate distance. So can you explain what those words actually mean to people who are not so familiar with 0.3 foot candles and ambient light conditions at an appropriate distance?
Sure. So I don't know how comfortable I feel giving you the scientific explanation of that, but I can tell you through my experience in controlling about 7 or 8 different brands of major billboards, which would be Daktronics for Metco, Watchfire. Here's my point. Every single sign is 150% fully adjustable. So what happens now is, based on the municipality that the sign is going to, we let our sign manufacturer know prior to shipping, this is how we need this sign dialed up. And it can't be any brighter than this, and it can't be any darker than this at certain times, et cetera. So they will calibrate our sign based on your requirements before it even gets here.
So, Mr. Crescione, some of these requirements are to limit sign brightness to 5,000 nits during the day, 500 nits at night. Can you just briefly tell us what nits are and confirm that you have the ability to control?
Sure, so the nits are the measurement of the lightness of the bright, and back to my previous point, these billboards are totally automated now, so today was actually a perfect example. On a day like today, where we had that really, really dark overcast day, this billboard's gonna be automatically dimmed down as if it were still nighttime. So it's gonna read the ambient light based on what kind of day it is, and it's gonna give you a nice, comfortable read.
Now, one of the things people don't like is to see a billboard that's got pixels out or half of it's missing, there's like some kind of malfunction. What happens if there is any type of a malfunction or pixels are out? What would it look like?
Sure, so I'll tell you that in my experience with the kind of providers that we get these billboards from, we pay top dollar for a quality product. Maybe in 10 years, we've had 1 pixel go out. So I think that the fact that we buy really, really high quality products is a big difference. And I'll tell you where they didn't do it. They didn't do it all the way up in Branchville. And you used to see a digital billboard up there next to the Jumbo Land Diner. And that was a great example of a company that didn't buy a quality product. It was too bright. It wasn't adjustable. Now the billboards are gone. So, and the reason I mention that is the quality of the display is everything.
Can you confirm that if there is a malfunction, the display would go dark?
Automatically will go dark if that's how we have it programmed. So for instance, if half the billboard goes dead for some reason, it will power it down.
Can you confirm that there would not be any scrolling or animation on the messaging?
None of our billboards have that.
And can you confirm or tell us, what is the time between switching messages?
Sure. So it's a state-mandated 8-second flip. It has to be a seamless flip. It can't be a slide, a flop, a wipe, pop. It has to be a seamless flip, which is weird because there's a little bit of a disagreement between the on-premise digital marketing rules, because you'll see an American flag waving, but on a digital billboard, there's no movement allowed. So no, the DOT does not mandate any movement whatsoever other than an instantaneous flip of the ad, 8 seconds long.
And can you confirm that there is a valid NJDOT outdoor advertising permit in possession?
Hey, Dave, just keep your voice up a little bit. I want to make sure you're getting picked up.
Yep, sorry, thank you. Mr. Crescione, can you confirm that there is, in fact, an NJDOT permit that is valid and issued to the applicant?
Yes, there is.
Can you tell us briefly about what types of messages are intended to go on the billboard?
So once we launch and we have our contact information up there, anyone's liable to call. Most of the time, it's obviously local businesses or organizations looking for help. So in my experience, it's all been very relevant businesses to the sign. They're all going to want to use it. And other than that, it's been pretty vanilla. We've just been had business marketing.
You mentioned busing companies, schools. What about local police departments?
Well, we work with them every day. They'll ask for something, you know, the Andover Township beanbag toss. I mean, all these little things, you know, to be honest, I feel like we've turned really bad fundraisers into pretty good fundraisers for people. You can ask the Frankfurt Township Fire Department that. I mean, they call me every other day. I've never seen someone do more beefsteaks in my life, but you know what? It must be working. And as long as they're having a beefsteak, we put it up on that billboard, and that does a couple things. That even helps our diner running the ad, because those people go to see the ad. It is really a full circle thing that happens when you're marketing. Everybody kind of wins.
Can you tell us about other billboards in town and how this billboard would be either the same or different than other billboards?
Sure. So I'll run through this quickly because I've taken note of all the billboards in town. So coming down 181, you have the Jefferson Recycling billboard on the right. That's a single-sided board. It's probably 4 times the size of what we have. Then right after that, there's a double-sided out front billboard, 10 by 15. Once again, double the size, maybe bigger. Then you head down.
Repeat that.
Yep.
You were just talking about Route 15 in Jefferson, right? Can you?
Yeah. So I was
What those
referencing.
signs are, I want to get a comparison of.
Mhm. Yep. So I think what Mr. Gray was asking me was the other billboards in Sparta.
Okay.
Okay. So in comparison to what we're asking for, those 2 signs on 181 that I just referenced are double to triple the size of the signs that we currently have. Okay. Then you have the ones near Skyview. You have 4 billboards right next to each other, 2 of them going on the right-hand read, and then 2 of them that are kind of set up in the woods. They're all out front billboards. Sometimes it'll be the same ad right next to each other. It'll be a plumber and the same plumber right next to each other. Not very tasteful if you ask me, but this is a whole different thing. So even those boards, 2 to 3 times the size, maybe even 4 times the size of what we are asking for.
But those are just poster boards. Those are not LED kind of things like you're asking for, correct?
They are, but they're lit. And
Excuse me, Jennifer, you could hold those important thoughts until
Okay.
they're complete, and when they get to our time to
Okay.
ask all those questions, definitely follow up on
Mhm.
it. But I want them to complete the application
Okay.
first. Go ahead.
Thank you.
And the same with Mr. Simmons' report. Don't get too involved with all his notations yet, because he's going to present it, and then you guys
Okay.
can reply to him. So I
So-
don't want to go off course, so
So just to answer your question, there are about 10 billboards in Sparta that are quadruple the size, 2 to 3 times the size of what we are currently asking for. Notably, by the railroad tracks near the bagel station, less than 1/10 of a mile away from this site, on a 25-foot pole, there are 2 enormous billboards that are usually taken by national companies. And in between, I have Nanette. Nanette has had that billboard for quite a while, the real estate agent with the headband. And then the orthopedic center has been on the other side. But the point is this: if we are able to get this done for Sparta, we will open up 16 brand-new opportunities for a small local business to advertise on an affordable sign. Not $3,000 a month, not crazy national numbers. An affordable sign for a local business that really, truly needs it.
Thank you, Mr. Crescione. I'm going to ask you to have a seat.
You can call your next professional, Mr. Gregg, please.
Thank you. This time I'm going to ask Donna Holmquist to please come up.
Mr. Keith, you were so kind again
Hi.
to swear them in and qualify.
Do you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth in proceedings before the board tonight, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Who are you?
Good evening. My name is Donna
Donna, why
Holmquist.
don't you sit down so we make sure we get your
Speak
mic?
into that microphone really
Otherwise,
close.
it's just
yeah.
dead space.
Okay,
We
sure.
gotta hear you.
My name is Donna Holmquist. The last name is spelled Holmqvist. I'm the CEO and founder of Preferred Planning Group. My business address is 110 Chestnut Ridge Road, Suite 192, Montvale, New Jersey. I can give my
Donna,
qualifications.
I'll help you, Donna. You're a licensed professional player in the state of New Jersey?
Yes, since 1990.
And by whom are you employed?
Myself.
What do you do? Do you represent boards? You represent applicants?
Yes, I do applicant testimony. I'll just share an application I did for a farm, Hawk Ridge Farm in Jefferson. They were doing something very creative with rebuilding cottage houses, seasonal cottage houses, to year-round housing for their workers. And we got a use variance for that, so that's right in your neck of the woods. As far as municipal consulting, I recently finished a master plan for the borough of Riverdale in Morris County, and I'm currently working on one for Englishtown in Monmouth County.
And Donna, you've appeared before numerous boards throughout the state. You've appeared in court as an expert.
Yes,
Right.
Superior Court, Tax Court, Federal Court. I'm representing the borough of Emerson right now in federal court.
You do it all, right?
Yes, and I've qualified in over 120 municipalities in New
The
Jersey.
license is valid as of tonight?
Yes.
Is that satisfactory?
Thank you. Glenn, any questions from the board? All satisfied?
It's just to save you time, Dave.
Understood. Thank you very much.
Go ahead, please.
Sure, to just expedite, I have some handout exhibits. Should I bring those to the chair or?
To our board attorney.
How many do you have done? How many different ones?
Oh, just one.
Oh, why don't you make our life easy? All right, so for the record, we're going to mark it as A1, and it's going to, for identification purposes, it's called Location Context Anderson Farm Sign, Sparta Township. Prepared by Planning Group. There you go. Pass one down to this, to the brains of the outfit here, please. Just mark that as A1.
Yeah, I'll just, set that exhibit up for you.
Donna, did you prepare this?
Yes.
Okay.
The base map that we used is Leaf Off. It's from March 2024. We subscribe to a service called Near Map, so it's not a Google map. It's from the Near Map mapping service, and it's, again, from March 2024. One of the distinctions of the subject site, the Anderson Farm, that you should be aware of is the dual frontage. They have frontage on Route 15, which is approximate almost 1,900 or 2,000 feet. They also have frontage on the other side on Layton Lane, and that's about 1,800 or thereabouts of frontage. So interesting characteristic of this property is that they have the dual frontage. It is a preserved farm per the county, and it totals 11.5 acres. As you know, Route 15 is a through road for tourism and recreation as well as your local traffic, and it's a very high traffic roadway according to the county traffic volume data. It's about 28,000 vehicles both ways on that Route 15 corridor right outside our site. To the north of the subject site, in terms of tourism and points of interest that people may be looking for that may find guidance on this proposed sign, the Skyland Museum of Art, the Friar Mount Railroad Museum is to the north of the site, and also to the south of the site is the Van Kirk Homestead Museum and Lake Mohawk. When we look at the proposed use, George testified to the dimensions. I'll just go through those again. We're asking for a modest increase from 32 square feet to about 35.28 square feet, very minor. And that really has to do with, as he said, the standard signage dimensions that lend themselves to this application. I don't look at this sign as a billboard. I look at it as an electronic message center because it is of such a small size, and it really is, as George said, catering to the local market and the immediate region of Sparta and surrounding businesses. Some of the benefits of an electronic message center sign are reducing the number of signs. As you know, the farm already has, a few signs. They have the ice cream sign, the main sign, and maybe they may have also seasonal signs advertising what the activities are. So this sign would condense all that signage and all that messaging into one neat location. The signs, as George said, you can control the glare and the light trespass based on the manufacturing standards of the sign. And also it can accommodate an emergency message if there's a weather event or a school, God forbid, emergency. There could be a transmission of a message for people to spread the word very quickly. We have flexibility with these type of signs and the ability, as George said, to help multiple local businesses by advertising not just Anderson Farm. So really is, as I see it as a planner, an opportunity to strengthen the economic development in the community as a whole. I looked at the readable height that is required. There's a 50-mile-an-hour speed limit on Route 15, and this site is appropriate given that speed and how many feet per second somebody would travel to give them enough time to see the lettering. Obviously, the sign has to be a certain size to get the correct lettering size for vehicles traveling at that speed. So while you may look at 35 square feet, or I believe it's 35.28 we're looking for, that's, in my opinion as a planner, a very small sign for vehicles that are traveling 50 miles an hour and looking to read the message. Just turning to the exhibit now, what we did was color code the Anderson Farm in green so that you can see just how extensive it is and that it does occupy land on both sides of Layton Avenue, Layton Road. And we color-coded the commercial development. You're familiar with the Sparta Medical Center directly across from the farm, and then towards the south, closer to the railroad, that's in a C1 zone, the smaller multiple businesses that are located in that area.
And Don, if I might just interrupt, is it correct to say that there's no residential houses or zone here that would have visibility like from their house to this?
That's correct. You can see on the left side of the west side of Route 15, to the left of the red shading, we also showed enough of the area to see the development that is accessed by Primrose Lane. And that is a very substantial distance away from this, and there will be no impacts, in my opinion. The subject site is in the ED zone, and the opposite side of Route 15 is in the ED1 zone. And of course, you understand that the North Village, quite far north, maybe within a mile of this site, was where Sparta has elected to have a mixed-use, very substantial and wonderful mixed-use development there. The sign regarding Primrose Lane and the access to the closest residential development, the sign where it exists now and where it is proposed to be in the same location is about 800 feet north of the intersection of Primrose Lane with Route 15. And so obviously, as you can see on the map, the residences are set back even farther to the west. The other thing I want to call your attention to on this map is the topography. The topography is very level along Route 15 where Anderson Farm is, and it only varies between maybe 616 feet closest to the railroad and rises up maybe near the church to about 625. So given the distance that we are showing on the map, it's extremely level, which in my opinion makes it very appropriate for the size and type of sign that is being proposed. I also looked at some of the signage in the immediate area, and we were not able to get the exact dimensions, but the near map service that I subscribe to has different options on there, 3D, oblique, and they're very accurate. In fact, I want to say that a lot of surveyors use Nearmap to verify elevations, structures, all that type of thing. So it's very accurate. So what I did to try to gauge our 35.28 square foot sign and its compatibility with what exists in this immediate Route 15 corridor, I did scale the sign panels of the Sparta Medical Campus. They have 2 freestanding signs, monument-type signs. There's a Frederick's Fuel business that's in a different zone, that's in the C1 zone. They have a freestanding sign. And the Bagel and Deli. And so what I was coming up with was, as I said, we're proposing about 35.25 square feet. And the Sparta Medical Campus, each sign is about 40 to 50, give or take, square feet. The Frederick's Fuel sign is about 35 to 40 square feet. And the Bagel and Deli is a little more complicated signage because of the stacking of the faces and the irregular shape. So I estimated that at about 60 square feet. We are not changing the setback of our sign. There is a shoulder on both sides of Route 15, and our sign will be in exactly the same place it is now, which is about 21 feet to the edge of the travel lane of Route 15. And again, I think it's appropriate to leave the sign where it is because you want the message within the driver's field of vision, and you want a certain elevation, which in this case I find to be appropriate, so that the sign can be easily read on the approach by the moving vehicle. As was stated before, your zoning ordinance prohibits what is termed in the code as advertising signs. To me, as a planner, that means off-premise signage, where you're advertising something that is not occurring on the actual site. But this electronic message sign that is part of this application is actually, in my opinion, a hybrid because it will be advertising activities, events, material to be sold and so forth of the Anderson Farm, but also will incorporate that economic development aspect to include other businesses and also possibly a public safety aspect if that becomes requested or necessary. So we are requiring variances from Section 18-4.2E, which prohibits uses, any use not specifically permitted is prohibited. So we are not coinciding with that. Advertising signs are prohibited in all zones per Section 18-5.3M 3B. We need a variance for that. The code talks about a purpose of controlling the size and location and the character for signage, but it refers to on-premise signage. And we are compatible with the surroundings based on my analysis of the existing area and the exhibit that I submitted as evidence to support my conclusion offered to you. This will be expressive of the identity of individual proprietors and foster a greater community character. And I do not believe it will be distracting to motorists because, as pointed out in your board engineer's letter, we will comply with all of the dark sky requirements that he recommended to be part of the application. Regarding signage requirements for the ED and the ED1 zone, the ED1 zone is directly across the street from us where I cited the other signs that exist that I looked at, and we are in the ED zone. The standards for those signs in the code are one freestanding sign with a maximum of 48 square feet. We're considerably less than that, existing and proposed. Double-faced signage is permitted. We will have the electronic message on both sides of our sign. The setback, we have an existing nonconformity, but your code allows signage within 25 feet of the right-of-way. And the maximum height allowed is 16 feet, and we're considerably below that. So for those reasons, I think we are essentially consistent and compatible with the standards of the community for signage. I won't go into a lot of detail, as the chair said, item by item, but your board engineer's letter summarized the dark sky requirements regarding brightness, light sensors, default add times, brightness adjustments, the procedure if there's a malfunction, the movement of messaging, and prohibition on video. And we will comply with all of those requirements stipulated in the engineer's review. So turning now to the master plan, which is from 2020 in Sparta, there's an emphasis on looking at local conditions and also sustaining the economic base of the community. As I indicated on the exhibit, we're on a highway corridor, very high volume area of 28,000 plus vehicles, daily volume. And we are compatible, the variance is compatible with the master plan land use policies because we are fostering economic development, the advertising of businesses, many of which will be in town, supporting a customer base for those businesses, and also fostering the activity on a preserved farm. Preserved farms, in my opinion as a planner, form a public purpose because those lands, they will never be developed. If it is a preserved farm by the county, it won't be developed. It's in perpetuity. And in the green on the exhibit, we showed the land that is preserved farm per the county. So it's very substantial with the Anderson farm. So turning now to the statutory criteria, we need a D1 use variance per the MLUL, and we need to submit proofs for the positive and the negative criteria to hopefully enable you to grant this relief. We need to show you that we advance the purposes of planning and that the site is particularly suited for this use. And to offer those special reasons, I would again say to you, this highway corridor has commercial development directly opposite this site. The existing residential development, which we showed on the aerial, is 800 plus feet away and will not be impacted by this proposed sign. The sign is essentially the same size as what exists now and is really just a message center. I would never call this sign a billboard. There's a real distinction in my mind between those two. The topography also lends itself to a sign at this location, which is easily readable for vehicles within the 50-mile-an-hour speed limit. The two purposes of planning that I submit that we advance are per NJSA 40:55D-2, and that is subsection A, which states encourage municipal action for the appropriate use to promote public health, safety, and welfare. I think the testimony supports that. And subsection G provides sufficient space in appropriate locations for a variety of uses to meet the needs of New Jersey citizens. I think this sign will achieve and further both those purposes of planning. Regarding the negative criteria, there are two prongs to that: no substantial detriment to the public good and no substantial impairment to the intent and purpose of the zone plan or zoning ordinance. Looking at the first one, no substantial detriment to the public good. Promoting economic development is something consistent with the master plan. Encouraging farm preservation, I think is linked with this electronic message center. The sign right now is not achieving a purpose. It's very hard even to read that website address that's on there. I think this will go a long way to enabling the farm to really reach its full potential, along with aiding other businesses. It's located on a tourism and recreation route. There's so much open space. Sparta is so fortunate to have so much preserved open space, and I'm sure a lot of visitors come to your area and they're not familiar with it. And so I think a signage like this would help direct them to points of interest and businesses to visit while they're here. Regarding no substantial impairment to the intent and purpose of the zone plan and zoning ordinance, this sign is small compared to the signs on the opposite side of Route 15. It is only very small enlargement to, in comparison to what's there now. And the distance to the only residence that we indicated on the aerial is quite a large distance. And so that concludes my testimony, and I would be happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you, Donna. And you have one more professional, you said, Mr. Gray?
No, that's it.
Oh, that's it?
That concludes the presentations.
All right, thank you. We'll now open it up to our board attorney. David, if you're so kind, to go over your report.
Mr. Chairman, I appreciate the promotion to board attorney, but I better
Oh,
stick
excuse
with
me.
engineering.
And you certainly don't want me doing the engineering, Mr. Chairman.
No problem. Mr. Chair-
apologize,
No,
please.
no problem, Mr. Chairman, just a joke. Referring to my report of April 10th, 2024, I will say between the applicant's three witnesses, they covered a significant portion of my comments, but just a couple of things I'd like to highlight for the board. With regards to my comment number 4A, with the existing sign, the Township Section 18-5.3 MAA requires a minimum offset distance of 25 feet from the right-of-way line. My understanding is the applicant wants to basically, if the board approves the application, construct the sign in basically the exact same place that it is now, maintaining the existing offset off the right-of-way line. I will say that based on the information that was presented, the existing edge of the sign closest to the Route 15 right-of-way is very close, if not on or in the right-of-way. So the one suggestion I would have is that if the board does approve this, that the applicant surveyor stakes the right-of-way line, so they're definitely not in the state right-of-way, so we don't run into an issue with the DOT on that. The other thing I'd like to comment on is item 4F, where I mentioned about 8 items that they should adhere to if the board grants the approval as far as the operation of the sign. And I would just comment that over the years, when we first had one simple, and I say simple, basics electronic sign come in that just had basically one line of text, if you will, in one color, at that time, my recollection is some of the controllers and the state-of-the-art of the signs at that time was, as Mr. Gray said, when you order it from the factory, it's basically preset to certain conditions, and that's what you've got. My understanding from this application, and I believe the current state-of-the-art, if you will, is that the controllers for these signs are adjustable. And the good part about that, I think, is the fact that it's kind of like art. I can't explain it to you, but I know it when I see it. Well, the 500 and the 5,000 nits are what we've been using consistently from application to application. But in the real world, if that turns out to be too bright, there's an adjustment that's possible to tune it down. And I would suggest that if the board is considering granting the application, that a condition be that upon observation of the signage in practice and operation, if in fact there's a significant concern, that the applicant be willing to adjust it as necessary. That's a question.
Yes, I don't want to testify about it,
Okay.
but I think if I could just bring Mr. Anderson up to confirm that.
Counsel, all you have to do, we're not quite that formal. The sign is dimmable if it has to be, is that correct?
100%, and we'll be happy to be in communication with township officials to make sure.
He'll be the guy.
Okay. So other than that, Mr. Chairman, I believe they've covered all the items that I had concerns about with regards to this application.
Just one question, David, about covering the potential survey for the right-of-way. You had mentioned that as a potential condition.
Yes, actually, as we normally do, because usually there's some variances involved and some distances involved. My comment number 6B, if the board approves the application, that when it's installed, that we have an as-built plan prepared by the applicant's licensed land surveyor. And since I'm sure they've had surveys done of this property in the past, that's why I'm suggesting that the called Route 15 north-south, the easterly right-of-way line actually be staked in the field so that when they go to construct this sign, we know for a fact that they're not inside the DOT right-of-way.
Thank you, David.
Yes, sir.
We would have no objection for that to be a condition.
Marissa, you could open it to the other board members if you're so kind to call upon them.
John Finkelty,
I'd just like to say that the professionals, all the professionals, the testimony answered a lot of my questions, and I have no questions. Thank you.
Michael Joseph,
Yeah, just a few questions. Are there any other LED type billboards in town here?
Yes, yes, there are.
Do you mind?
You want me to enumerate
Yeah.
them? Yeah. Let's see.
I just want to understand their sizing if you have it for comparison.
Okay, the size, I will
don't
not
have-
have that,
okay.
no. But Mr. Crescione had put together a collage of photographs. I don't know if that was submitted. But on there, he had the Reverend George A. Brown Memorial School / Our Lady of the Lake. That has one. I'm sorry, I don't know the size. The other is Sparta High School. And the third one he had is the, I'll call it Computer Urgent Care, 513 Lafayette. That has, from what I saw, like a black background, and I wasn't really clear what the message was on there.
Well, all of those are, I guess, I'm not going to call them billboards or
Electronic
messaging,
message signs?
electronic
Yes.
messaging centers or whatever. But
Right.
do they advertise other local businesses, or are they
I don't know.
strictly for their business?
I don't know.
Come
we're not gonna
forward
pick
to
you
the
up.
microphone, please.
Donna, you can stay there because that microphone's live too.
You can hit
Sir,
that.
you
Right
can-
over here.
Just go to, right there, yep.
So those are all digital on-premise signs that she was referring to. So off the top of my head, you have one outside here, which is a full color sign. The sign that we're referencing would look most like your sign here, okay? Very similar to that. The one by the Computer Urgent Care, which was the old Mexican restaurant, which is half broken right now. That's an on-premise sign. Reverend Brown's is an on-premise sign. You have several digital gas signs in town. And while I have the mic, I'll just share that this past weekend I was driving through the center of Sparta, where you have that really nice sign by the middle school. Okay, and outside of that sign where it usually says every day is a good day to shop local, were two rented digital signs. The orange construction signs, rented, flanking right in the center of town with a message, half of it was out. My point is, when I saw that, I saw the need for messaging. When I saw those two construction signs parked outside of I said, they must need digital messaging. Because it's really not easy to put those letters up every day, so. But all the digitals that have been mentioned by Donna are on premise. The one that would look most similar to our sign would be yours here, right in the parking lot.
All right, thank you.
My next question goes to how much of the sign is dedicated to actually advertising the farm versus advertising local businesses? Because, I mean, testimony was given that one of the purposes of this sign was to condense some of the other signs on the property. But if you're purely just going to be advertising, how is that going to
Sure, so the way that.
condense?
So the way that would work would be, whatever content Mr. Anderson has for the farm would go into one slot, into a rotation. Okay, so picture 8 available slots on each side. One of those spots is for Mr. Anderson, and he's gonna be able to put as much as he wants in there, okay? Then you might have two business advertisements come up, and then the next spot is for Sparta Township, where Sparta Township, if they decide to use the sign, can put as many messages as they want, whether it's a local safety message or taxes are due tomorrow, whatever it may be. All those messages go into the sign. So to answer your question, that number will change, the percentage will change, but the way I've seen it would be about 80% business marketing and about 20% for Mr. Anderson. If nobody calls to advertise, obviously that changes. I don't foresee that happening. But there's always a nice healthy balance between the property it's currently on and the people that are using the sign to advertise.
Okay, Mike?
Yeah, some more questions, I think.
Go ahead. Thank you, sir. Go ahead, Marissa. Yeah, Mike was finished.
I think so. Hold on.
Michael Leondi.
Wait, no, I'm not done.
Well,
yet.
all right, go
Yeah. Oh, yeah, not done. Now, the sign, is it going to be operating 24 hours a day?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. All right, that's all.
Michael Leondi.
I'm good. The testimony grabbed all my questions. Thank you.
Mark Scott.
Thank you. That was a wonderful presentation. Yeah, one of my questions is, where are the other electronic signs in town? And I can only think of Reverend Brown and the high school. I was recently elected to the town council to do everything possible to maintain the rural quality of this town. And that's what people voted for me for. If these signs are allowed to come in, Route 15 will become Route 17, and this will look like Paramus in no time. You know, if the existing planning board professionals are successful in dragging the Diamond Ship mega warehouse across the finish line, the town will change forever. Anderson Farms, I think, can come back then when the town is actually, you know, when the town has changed. But I'm doing everything in my power to keep this town looking rural and quaint, and the reason I moved here. You also talked about, it's a D1 variance, and the code, and you mentioned that the code talks to the character of the town. And as I see the character of the town, it's a quaint town. It's not a Paramus. Our master plan is some 42 years old. It's being redone right now. Another comment was that it was mentioned many times that that there would be other advertising for other towns and public service for other towns. And it seemed to be a contradiction of what the testimony was. Both were said. A D1 variance is, it has to be for the public good. And I'm sorry, I don't see that. I'm a hard no. Thank you.
And thank you, Mark.
Jennifer Manaha.
Thank you. I would concur that the testimony was fantastic, and I'm very sensitive to Tor's business and trying to ensure that we keep him in business and he has as many avenues to a revenue stream as he can possibly get. But I agree with Mark. I don't see this aligning with what the town does. That being said, I've kind of been researching here, and many towns have gone through this, and they don't end up being able to make the argument that an LED sign. But, I feel like you've got this beautifully sustainable farm, and we all know that light pollution is light pollution. We moved here so we could see the stars. And, lighting up our town is just, to me, completely opposing what we're about here. I know you mentioned, you have such a beautiful place with so much open space, but we've fought hard to keep that, and right now we're in the battle for the life of this town to stay rural. People come here and they're like, but you have this and you have that. Yes, but we want to preserve that. We want to preserve it as a rural town. I'm just curious, Tor, have you ever considered any options to this? Was this the only option that you felt like you had? I mean, I love your sign out front. I mean, if it was lit, maybe if you had a little bit more room, but it seems to be doing the job. It seems here like you just have a really viable way to perhaps bring in a revenue stream. And, we can argue the merits of whether it's a township or an advertisement. I'm perfectly delighted with the fact that you're trying to make a profit with it. I think that's perfectly fine. But have you thought about maybe putting something that's more like a traditional billboard on the property? Have you ever, I'm just curious, did you ever go through any of this with your team here to see what the alternatives were?
Mr. Anderson, you can come forward to the microphone, please.
So I have not thought about doing a traditional billboard. The only reason I'm looking at this is because of the extra, I'm perfectly blunt with you. The extra revenue is a big game changer for a farmer in Sussex County right now. And I understand what you're saying, that you want to keep it as rural as possible, but I go out of business. I don't know where you're going to find another farmer to farm 300 acres in Sparta right now. So I'm kind of a asset to the community right now as a farmer, and I'm, actively farming every piece of ground I can possibly get in the town. And we do a million different things every day to make ends meet so we can get through the year. And this just takes a little bit of and I get it. You say yes to me, then there's going to be 10 more people trying to put a sign up. So I understand completely, but, it's kind of a big deal for me as a farmer trying to make a living in New Jersey. And I am 100% for keeping Sparta as rural as possible. I grew up farming all the land underneath ShopRite, and I hate to see that right there. It's but there's not much we're gonna do about that. There's a lot of successful businesses in there, but we're gonna continue to farm as long as we can. I'm just trying to figure out how to make it a little bit easier. So.
Thank
May
you,
I
Mr.
just add
Anderson.
one insight for the board to consider?
Excuse
And
me, Donna, what was that?
can I offer one insight on this discussion for clarification? I may not have made the point as clearly, apparently. This is a preserved farm, and when you look at the eastern side of Route 15, That falls within the Highlands Preservation Area, so I understand what the board member is saying and the soon-to-be councilman about the character of your community. But as a planner, when I look at it, a substantial portion is in the Highlands Preservation Area, and that won't be developed. And what I was trying to emphasize with the unique feature of this property is that it is preserved farmland. It's not just land that somebody is farming, it's preserved by the county. I hope that helps.
And thank you, Donna. Next, Marissa, I guess I'm the only one left? All right, thank you. David and Glenn, are there any other digital signs in town now that advertise other businesses on them that you would know about?
Not that
So I-
comes
you know,
to the
just the
top of
owner.
my head.
No.
As the planner indicated, I know at the various gas stations, the Quick Check comes to my mind. That's got the digital sign for the prices of the fuel, different types of fuel. One of the first electronic signs that came up was the former Mexican restaurant. That's the one I was referring to, that when that sign was first put up, it basically, if I recall correctly, subject to checking, basically had the ambient light and the maximum nits for daytime and nighttime built into it. And it was basically just red text, as I recall. Now, there is a sign out in front of this municipal building, but it basically advertises municipal functions, to the best of my knowledge. It's colored, and it will change from time to time, I believe. There was a digital sign put up on the middle school. My recollection is that was on the building, and it was to advertise school events. There's a track practice at 5 o'clock or whatever.
Right.
That type of thing. Those are the signs that come to mind in Sparta.
But this would be the first, probably in regards to advertising all these other businesses in town and out of town.
Subject to checking, that's my recollection.
Thank you, David.
Yes.
Sorry to jump in.
Yeah, George.
A sign that just came to mind that is almost identical to what we're proposing is the new digital sign that was just put outside of is that the fire department there across from the post office? What, is that the Sparta stage? They have that brand new digital sign?
The ambulance.
The ambulance building? Yep. So indirectly, I just, on my way here, I saw that they're advertising the photography club, okay? Which is not in that building, okay? So indirectly, that is an advertisement for a local business, right? And if you watch that sign scroll, you will see many businesses and organizations that are not in that building, but they're using that location as a great messaging tool for the getting ambulance members and for the photography club and things of that nature. So the way I'm hearing it is we're going to be doing nothing different. Okay. The ads are going to show up just as beautiful and professionally as they have them. We will operate the sign a little differently, gearing it towards businesses that are used to being on these kinds of signs, but identical to what they're doing is what we're going to be doing. On it, that's a beautiful sign too, by the way. That's a Watchfire sign. That's the kind of brand that we would use. You can tell the clarity. The township has had no complaints over brightness over that sign. So that's one that came to mind.
All right, thank you. Ms. Gregg, does any of the professionals have any renditions of what this sign will actually look like? The construction, I noticed on the one submittal, you had a rendition of the new sign. But, you know, what is it actually going to look like? Because that's a big issue with this board of these signs.
Yeah, what we submitted with the original application package, which we're happy to supplement with additional renderings, but not here.
So how does the rest of the board feel about what the sign would actually look like, the construction of this sign, like we're going through now with another application?
I think it's important.
Mark, Mike?
I'd like to see more. I don't really understand the distinction between how bright this sign is and these other ones, because we're talking about gas stations, you've got lines, but they're very bright. But when you're talking about Pope John and Sparta High School, I mean, those are kind of old-fashioned, like, I don't know how to explain it, but like dot matrix
The res-
kind of signs.
So the resolution on those is different?
Yeah, and is this more like an LED like, is it more like a TV display, like I'm seeing in, versus, right, versus a just,
Yeah, this would be a really high resolution, and just so you can understand,
yeah.
the higher the resolution, the less black you have in between the dots. As a matter of fact, the newest digital signs, a lot of times you can't even tell they're digital. That's how tight the resolution is. You wouldn't know if it was a regular billboard with splash lighting, like you see all over the place, or if it was a digital display. And that's where the signs companies have gotten to because of these conversations.
I was just a little surprised you didn't actually have a rendition, photos and construction of what they would look like. And I know I would feel more comfortable. I don't know if the rest of the board feels the same way, or if the board wants to take a vote on it tonight without seeing what this, sign would actually look like, where it goes here. How does the rest of the board feel? Do you want to vote on the application tonight, or have the applicant come back with renditions of what it would actually look like?
What I would suggest is I'm happy to come back with renditions of what the board actually look like, and we can submit larger.
You're open to that in your applicant?
If I could just speak to my
Sure.
applicant real
Go ahead.
quick.
And actually, could I ask a question? I don't know
Oh,
if
yeah,
this is a
sure.
stupid question, but,
Right.
I mean, this gentleman's, I forget his name. Oh,
I think that was George.
George. Oh, okay, yeah. Really? Ask if they have, they have a sample. TV screen, let me see how bright it is.
Thank you. I just wanted to confirm that the applicant was okay with coming back and
Yep.
providing some additional rendering so that you had a better feeling for the.
Oh, thank you. How does the rest
Yeah.
of the board feel about that? Mike, you had
I
another
do, and
question?
I do have a question. George, it sounds like, I mean, this is your business, you do a lot of sales of these types of signs. When you go out and you sell them to people, do you have sample LED signs that you could potentially bring that shows the brightness, shows what these lights look like? Like, I mean, obviously, you're not going to bring an 8x4, but do you have, a smaller, like a 22-inch TV version that you travel with and say, hey, look, this is what but selling you, but on a bigger scale, obviously.
So yeah, that doesn't really exist. I
It's
see
up-
I see where you're going with
Okay.
that. If you wanted to see exactly what we would build, okay, resolution wise, it would be right outside of the ambulance building. That is
Right here.
Right here. That is a beautiful, high resolution watch fire sign. That is exactly what we would be asking. And just to elaborate a little more on why there's not a rendition here, we had the rendition went in with the application. The sign is not changing at all. The white columns that are there right now are going to remain. Right now, they're wooden and they're rotting a little bit, so we would recreate those to look identically. See, we want to preserve the sign, but we also want to move forward with it as well. Right. The same thing happened at Yetter's Diner. The sign was kind of falling down, and the township allowed us to clean it up and move it forward a little bit, and it's been great. It's been great. So what you see there now in terms of the stanchions and everything wouldn't be changing at all.
George, one for me while
Sure.
we have you here. Maybe just speak for a minute on the concerns of light pollution of a modern LED sign like you're
Yep.
proposing versus kind of a traditional billboard with splash up lighting, right? And reconcile those two
Sure.
for us.
The way I view the signs now, okay, a regular traditional paper billboard like we see in town here with the splash lighting, you have the light that ricochets off the sign, okay, and it tends to create twice the amount of light, okay. You see that area around those signs kind of glowing, where the new digital signs now, the lighting is contained to the display. There is no reflection. There is no light going in two directions, this way and this way, and bouncing off of a glossy piece of paper, right? Which sometimes creates hotspots with headlights. We get none of that with these billboards. As a matter of fact, in all of my years of managing and monitoring these billboards, we've never had one complaint. Not from a person, not from a town. We have gotten a lot of praise for certain things we've done, but we've never had anyone call and say, hey, we hate this thing. Not in Lake Apacon, not in Franklin, not in Belleville, hopefully not in Sparta.
That's helpful, thanks.
Thank you. So again, your client is open to coming back with,
We are, Mr. Chairman. We can come back with renderings and
I think it would help the board and so forth if you're so kind of what the finished product would actually look like, even though you have the rendition here. It's not the same as seeing.
yeah. I guess I just have a procedural question.
Sure.
About that, if we were to come back and the constituency of the board changed a little bit, or maybe there were other members there that night. And I just want to make sure procedurally that's not going to interrupt the board's business.
We
Glenn
will-
could cover that.
I will be happy to,
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman. We will have, we're running tapes or videos on this, right?
Yes.
So we will have that available to board members that are missing. Normally, we have at least one more and usually two more because you haven't gotten to vote a whole lot now, have you? So I think we'll make those available. Board members have always been diligent in doing that, and you know the whole process. So we would make sure that that's covered and that they had it, David.
Thank you, Mr. Keynes, and yes, we welcome the opportunity, because if there's any, I want the board to know as much as possible about this very important decision. Appreciate it.
Thank you. And Marissa, and Glenn, what's the next date forward? I guess it would be the January
January
8th meeting?
yes.
Does that work, Glenn?
January.
Yeah, time's fine.
Would that potentially work?
Showing off, aren't you?
Would that potentially work for you too, sir, Mr. Gray, the 8th?
And it's the slow,
Mr. Anderson, the 8th? Yeah.
the slow time of year for tours, so.
Can I make a suggestion?
Sure.
This is none of my business, but I have sat through more of these applications, whether it's on big billboards off Route 78 in Springfield, not 78, but 22 in Springfield and stuff. Are there any other examples that the board members could look to for the size that you're talking about besides the ambulance one in Sparta? If there are, if you could get that list up to Marissa, so at least they could get a feel for it. I mean, I sat in Springfield and listened to a billboard application that went probably 6 or 7 hearings. And they were doing things with loaders and all this other stuff. This is a completely different sign. And I assume that it runs differently or will function somewhat differently than the ones down on 15 in Jefferson. Which
Yeah, a bit different. They're a bit different,
Yeah.
bit more state-of-the-art technology.
that's my point, so that the board members could at least consider that.
Yeah, I think what we'll do is we'll submit that information, so well in advance of the next meeting, if the board members wanted to kind of go around as they're driving around and say, oh, wait, you know what, let me make a left here. So-
David, this is good. This board does that, so that would be in everybody's
So that's what we'll
interest.
do. We'll provide that information well in advance of the next.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you, Glenn. So that's being carried to the first meeting in January 8, 2025.
Great.
Mr. Chairman, you do have another application.
Sussex County Tech.
Another sign.
Yeah, so which one are you going to schedule? I mean, there's no, is there public here? Are you with them, sir? You're a member of the public,
Oh.
all right. So we have one member of the public here. Mr.
And on that note,
All right, well,
That's right.
the chairman will get to you, but we only have one member of the public. So
so you're talking about the,
the school application that Elise,
of which will go first, or?
it's your
I'm a
call,
hard
you're the
dude on
boss.
that, too. What? I'm a hard
Well,
dude on
the
that,
other
too.
one's almost complete. That, I guess the Sussex County School Tech application we could schedule first.
Oh, did that one start? No.
Oh, yeah.
Sure, that started.
Yeah, it's coming to an end. They're coming back with a rendition
Oh,
of
so
the
they're in the
sign,
same position as this one?
as this applicant is, yes. So
All right, so
What do you think?
I think that's fine if they're teed up first.
Right.
But then let's carry this to a time certain so that these folks aren't sitting around for a half hour, 45 minutes. So maybe carry this one to 7:30 or 7:45 or something.
All right, it's fine. That's fine with me. Marissa, you can note that.
Pick a time, Mr. Chairman.
You go, 8 o'clock?
7:30, they can wait 15
7:30,
minutes
okay,
if you don't finish.
7:30. 7:30 PM,
Okay,
all right?
so I guess you want to open to,
Yeah, so now we'll open it, the hearing to the public. Sir, come forward, please. Please give your name and address to the secretary, then our board attorney will swear you in.
Okay. Tom Schoonmaker, 66 Cheyenne Trail, Sparta, New Jersey.
so your last name, Tom?
SCHOONMAKER.
Raise your right hand, please. You swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth in the proceedings before the board tonight, so help you God?
Yes, I did. Okay. Just want to speak specifically to something that Mr. Scott brought up, saying that it didn't serve any purpose to the public. I disagree with that because I have some businesses that are hurting right now because of the Route 15 debacle, where you can't get any traffic up the highway for whatever political reason that is, that we're not getting our road widened. I can't get people into my recycling facility, and I could use all the help I can get. So I'd like to be the first one to take an ad on this billboard saying to turn right at the next traffic light. There's a lot of other things that go on in this town besides just wanting to preserve it. I grew up in Parsippany when there were more cows than voters in that town. And I can tell you right now, you can wish all you want, but you're not going to stop progress with the people that are looking to get ahead. I have 4 children in this town. I've had them in here for a long time, and they're all in my businesses now. And they, you know, I mean, I have to help them. I moved to this town because I thought this was a sophisticated town where the people were very sensible, and I hope that that's still the case. So I view this sign as a big help to not only to Tor, but to our community. And, you know, it's great that we have Tor as a farmer. I got a farm right down the street that he farms and does a great job. I have 2 places that he farms. And, you know, I just think it's a good common sense decision, you know, in this day and age in the 21st century, you got every other kind of electronic device that you have. And, you know, people driving down that highway, since we don't have the good luck to have a road that allows people to travel at a normal rate, we're in traffic. People from Morris County don't come up to my recycling place because they don't want to sit in that traffic. So I'm losing 50 to 100 tons a day of recyclable material, right? But the little bit of help that I could get by the vehicles sitting in that traffic, viewing maybe my sign or somebody else viewing that sign and have a little chance to think about it because they're sitting there for 20 minutes, I think it'd be a great asset to the town. So, Mr. Scott, to just address the fact that you say that it's not serving the public, I think I respectfully disagree with you, and I think you need to take another look at that. You know, because there's a lot of businesses in this town, there's a lot of kids in this town that want to go into business, and there's a lot of things going on. At the same time, I live, as the crow flies, 10 miles away from my business. And I have no problem. I enjoy myself on a weekend, and I have no problem. I don't, Route 15 blows through. That doesn't affect me. I go home and I get off the road and I'm fine. And I go down to the, transfer station in the morning. I'll pass Tor's place. I'll pick up some tomatoes or whatever I get. And, it's just a great thing. I can't see how it's going to hurt anything. Thank
All
you.
right, thank you,
All right.
Tom. And just a note, our board attorney could probably confirm this, that financial situations, I've been on this board for many years, never come into determination when a variance is granted, just for the notes of how it's done. You confirm that, Mr. Keens?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm just
But
telling
I
you.
understand what you're saying, but that,
He got it. He got it, Mr.
all right. Thank you, Tom. Now the hearing is closed to the public. And back to the board. Any other questions before the applicant leaves?
Okay, so you're going to carry this then
To-
to
January
January 8th
8th,
at 7:30?
7:30.
And there'll be, Counselor, there'll be no further notice required.
Thank you very much. All right. All right, thank you all. You too, thank you. And then we have David Simmons, our board engineer, not board attorney. Board engineer with his end-of-year report, David. If you're,
Yes, Mr. Chairman and board members, I just took a minute to summarize all the applications we looked at over the years. It's been a very busy year, and there were a wide range of activities that we took place, and the board processed through their due diligence. So I just wanted to summarize that for you, and thank you for having me this past year. And it's been about around 30-some odd years that I've been doing this for you,
You're
so
welcome,
thank you very
David.
much.
Before we adjourn, I'd also like to thank, because the year's coming to an end in a few weeks, Marissa Ferraro, our board secretary, and her zoning planning office for all the work you've done. Our board attorney, Glenn Keats, our board engineer, David, for all the work you've done and hard dedication to this board. And of course, all the zoning board members. I appreciate everyone here and your input as usual.
And thanks to you too, Ken.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you, everyone. We can have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second? Second. All in favor? Aye. Thank